All right. It looks like we are live. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I am Jeff from Coalmarch. We are going to talk about quarterly rocks versus daily firefighting. And let me tell you, this is the theme. This is the theme of our lives right now at Coalmarch. So it couldn't come at better timing for us to kind of talk through this, especially when we're all setting goals for 2026. All right. So let's move along here. We don't need a big intro about me. I'm Jeff from Coalmarch. I'm the CEO. If you don't know, we are no longer part of WorkWave. We're out on our own now. So we've been putting on our own company building and setting our own priorities on our own rocks for the past 6 months now, Kristen?
Yeah, feels like longer.
Yeah. So let me introduce the true star of today's show, Kristen 9, like the number.
Like the number.
Kristen is our product superstar. She is our brain behind everything, our platform and everything moving forward. And in her role, she has to set a lot of goals. She sets a lot of priorities and moves a lot of things forward. So Kristen, looking forward to this presentation. Thanks for jumping in and putting this together today. I will hand it off to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. I was really excited to get this topic because I do feel like I live and breathe this every single day, and to get to share that with people where this might be a struggle. I'm very passionate about helping teams operate more efficiently. So super excited about that. So yeah, like Jeff said, today we're talking about a common problem that a lot of business owners face, especially small businesses, where you get stuck in the firefight. You're constantly putting out fires. Everything is urgent. You feel like you don't have time to breathe or do anything that's really pushing your business forward because you're just so stuck in answering like client escalation issues, like customer service issues, route management issues. Just everything is pulling you in every direction. And maybe your business has kind of stayed a little stagnant because of that, because you haven't been able to make big moves to help your business grow significantly. So today I want to talk about how we can help you break out of that cycle and help you focus on the business so it can grow the way you want it to. My goal at the end of today is to convince every single person listening that you need to focus on the high impact initiatives, and you need to stop focusing on these little emergencies that keep popping up every day. It's not as hard as you may think. It just takes a lot of discipline and commitment to doing the system. So I know that every single person can do this if you just use the right tools for it. So like I said, escaping the firefight, we're going to talk about why it's important. I'm going to talk to you about how to build a system. And then I have some resources for everybody that they can kind of take home after this. I know Jeff has referenced some of these resources, and he'll come back from a weekend and be really excited about something he read that will kind of influence how we operate. So I want to give some of those tools to all of you so that you can get just as excited as well.
All right, Kristen, before we jump into this one, let me tell you why this one is so close to my heart. So you mentioned one of the hardest things, which is getting out of the weeds, getting out of those. And, as entrepreneurs, which almost all of our clients are entrepreneurs, they've built these companies from the ground up. There's an evolution, right? You start off and you're doing everything yourself, and then you're trying to scale up as a business. You built everything the right way the first time around. So letting go. And I've had that problem. I'm sure there are going to be people who listen to this that work with us that are going to be like, yeah, Jeff, you're guilty. So I'm curious as we kind of look through this through the lens of we're all guilty of this.
Nobody's perfect. Yeah.
We all held on to things too long, and we stay in the weeds when we really need to put where our value is, which is out of the weeds, higher and strategically in the organization, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So when everything feels urgent, so these are the common things that I hear when I've been working with business owners in the past. I've spent a lot of time helping business owners and sales leaders in their office operating their CSR teams, trying to change systems that they know are going to help improve. But a lot of times these are the things that they'll say. They say, I never have enough time to tackle these big things. It's our busy season. It'll end in a few months and we'll be fine. I just need to hire more people. That's a common one. Like, we just can't do all the work with the people that we have. I need more people. And oftentimes it's worked so far, just like you were saying, Jeff. Like, these systems have worked for me for years. What do you mean I have to change them? They work so far. We're in good shape. I have said every single one of these in my leadership journey, and I know that I've heard it extensively from other leaders as well. So put these out of your head, because these are fallacies. I guarantee you that none of these are actually true if you are disciplined enough to follow kind of these steps. There's this concept of picking up brass that comes out of one of the leadership books. I'll put in the references, but it basically is just talking about how sometimes you need to pitch in. Sometimes leadership team members, you just need to get into the dirt and do some of the grunt work to get things done. And I'm not trying to negate that with these comments, because I do think that's important for leaders as well. But if you're constantly having to do it, you need to make a change. So working on the system, not in the system. There's this concept called the multiplier effect, where basically everything you do as a leader should not have a one-off impact on the business. It should be able to expand past that. So for example, let's say you have an angry customer who's on the call. Maybe your instinct is to hop on that call and deal with that customer directly, solve their problems, and handle it that way. That is just a one-for-one transaction where you've helped that one customer with that one problem, but what happens the next time the same situation pops up? So instead, try to think about, how are you going to train your managers on how to handle certain client issues? What policies can you put in place? What call scripts can you create? What special offers can you enable your CSR team to offer without your approval? How can you become not the bottleneck and create a system that they can make decisions themselves? So that's number one. That's a very important thing to consider through all this. So what do I mean by systems? I think that can be a very broad term. For this can be anything that creates kind of like a template or a roadmap for how to operate. This can be checklists, like I said before, call scripts. Sometimes it's a new software, like a route management software could be a new system you implement, something like that. So lots of different kind of ways that you can create a system, and you'll probably do a combination of like written processes or new software. But overall, there's a lot of different ways where you can impact the system. Jeff, I know that you've been working on building the Coalmarch sales system in past months. Would you say that this is kind of where the focus has been, and what has been easy versus not easy about that?
That is a really, really good question. So yes, we've been building a lot of systems, actually, a ton of systems. I'm going to go back to something you said earlier. What has worked in the past, may not work in the future from a systems perspective. And just to put an example of that out there. So from a sales and marketing perspective, when you're starting out, you can probably run spreadsheets and Google Sheets for free and keep track of everything that you're doing. And it's fine. And that system can work, and you can make them fancy and build some automation. Maybe you can put AI into it today. But you get to a certain point, and that's not going to take you. So let's say that'll take you to, a few 100,000 in your business, but you want to go to 1 million. In 1 million, you've got to have something bigger to run. And you can get an entry-level CRM to kind of build it. Okay, that's great. Well, then you get to our size, even the entry-level stuff's not going to work. Now we need marketing automation, and we need good landing pages with a lot of information, and we want to go out and do advertising in different spaces. Then you move to a HubSpot. Now, beyond that, even that only take us to a certain level. So at some point in time, we may even have to make the decision to go to even a bigger platform like a Marketo, one of those bigger ones. So it's funny, you get to a certain point, we use that term scalability. I know the PEs love that, scaling up a company, moving it. We use it all the time internally, but you hit plateaus on the system you've designed, and the systems that you've put in place are only built to handle certain levels. And then you've got to evolve. They've got to evolve, and they've got to move forward. So yeah, we're in a good place right now, but we had to build it. We had to build one that fit our current and our future needs. Couldn't implement something on the fly. We couldn't do spreadsheets anymore. As much as you love spreadsheets, Kristen, we couldn't.
You have to pry them out of my cold dead hands, I swear. But no, I totally agree with that. And I think the other element of this is like fostering a culture of building systems, where now it's not just that systems and process changes come from the leaders of the company, but all of our frontline team is trained to, if you see a flaw in a system that exists or something's changed and it no longer applies, we encourage our whole team to get into the conversation about improving it, so that the people doing the work have influence over the system itself. So so much you can do with this. The sky is the limit on that one.
So one other item that you brought up there, just before we move on to
Yeah.
this one, picking up the brass, and I think this is probably where you're alluding to. So I've my background, sales and marketing. That's where I came from. I've spent my entire career in this side, so it just fits that I ended up in the Coalmarch world. But building that sales and marketing system is near and dear to my heart, and that was one place that I interjected pretty quickly,
Yeah.
where I came in, where I was trying to add my own personal value. Now there are other parts of the business. I'm not a finance person. That's not where I need to go and implement. But there was a point in time where coming in, it made sense for me to be personally, even as a CEO of the business, to be personally involved in building that revenue side, the sales and marketing side. One, because it's a passion and I love doing it. It's a lot of fun. And two, it's where I could provide immediate value and help build the infrastructure. But once that infrastructure is built, what's time for me to do, right? What do I got to do now, right? Now we're
Yep,
there.
absolutely. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Sometimes you need to get into the weeds sometimes, especially if it's something that hasn't gotten focus in a long time and you kind of need to build it from the ground up. So I have a couple examples in my career with these concepts of focusing on the system. In my time, so I've been with Coalmarch since 2014. I was the 13th employee at the time. We were a very small startup kind of company. So I've worked in the startup realm. I've worked when we were under WorkWave for a large corporation. I've seen kind of the full gambit of what's possible in terms of running your business. And in this example, Jeff, you've referenced this quite a bit of like, we're in Coalmarch 3.0 right now. We're evolving to kind of our next level of business. If I look back at when we went from Coalmarch 1.0, which was our startup mentality, to our kind of next generation of Coalmarch, this was a time when we were starting to get bigger. We started to have a lot more customers, and we needed to have a better process for handling our clients. It couldn't be as one-to-one personable as we always thought. We couldn't scale that way. So we had limited systems in place for doing that because we had a couple key people that just did their jobs really well. We were relying on them. And as long as they were there and they were handling our clients were in good hands and happy. But you can't scale that way. So at this time, we completely turned over our leadership team. I joined the leadership team at this point. Gonna pat my own back on that one. But but I was a new leader at this time, and our CEO at the time was very big on training us on how to become better leaders. And I'll tell you, our team was drowning at this point. We just everybody had completely full capacity. We didn't think we could take on any more clients at the time. We didn't have budget to hire more people. And so us as leaders, the new leadership team that came in, we were like, we just need to jump in and help our team. We need to jump in and help them service our customers. We need to make sure we're taking care of our customers well. And our CEO said, no, I don't want you in the weeds. I want you building a system. I want you reading these books. I want you starting to implement these policies. And I thought he was insane. I thought there's no way this is going to work. This is like, we need to help our customers. There's no way this is going to work. We did it. I learned a very valuable lesson out of this, in that focusing on the system, it's hard at the time because maybe you're not perfect at everything during that time, and maybe certain things suffer. But the outcome, we completely restructured our company so that roles were different. And it allowed us to specialize in certain areas. And we were able to actually take on more work with the same staff amount that we had prior, except now we had a lot more breathing room. So this was just a very good experience for me. I learned a lot through it. And I look back at that like, oh, how naive I was to think that I was right about jumping in on clients versus creating the system. So lots of lessons learned here.
It's also fair to say that was the transition to focusing on pest and green. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
You had to build that system to be able to come out and better focus on vertical markets.
Right. And make sure that we were delivering the best solution to that customer base. Right. So my other example, and I'll keep this one shorter, but last year I took on ownership of a separate team in Coalmarch. They came under my umbrella. And when they came to us, it was a very bloated team. We had some bloated systems in place that created a lot of busy work. Our frontline team members who were working on clients were overwhelmed with all the work that needed to be done. And not only could we not hire for those roles, I was asked to cut that team in half. So we had to do more work with less team members. Again, you think, that's crazy. How could I possibly do this? And the manager of this team who reported to me did the same thing I did years ago, where they wanted to jump in and start taking on accounts, taking on projects. Because I had learned my lesson the first time, I said, no, we need to focus on the system, the processes. And we did it, and the team hung in there, and an amazing team that kind of stuck in there with us, knowing we had a vision. And in doing that, we cut 33% of project time by just focusing on the processes and the systems that we had in place. I didn't need to hire any more people. We could cut that team in half and still produce higher quality work than we were before. So those are my little anecdotes. I don't know, Jeff, if you have any kind of experiences off the top of your head where system work really paid off, but
I think we're in the middle of it right now, but I watched you go through this. I was in this journey, and it was really transformative. And I think we've already seen one particular line of products cut down. I think it's cut to 30% of the original time. So maybe, or 25%. It is significantly less work for us to get it up, and the same quality, if not better. That's the other thing. You're not sacrificing quality when you do these things. A lot of times what you're doing is you're just re-engineering how you're offering it to clients. And sometimes you find better ways to go about offering the services through that re-engineering thought process. That's why it's a higher level, and it really is an investment place that you've got to be as an executive, as a leader in a company.
Absolutely. Okay, so the last little point I want to make here is adding headcount can be an easy solution. That might be your knee-jerk instinct, but it's a temporary solution. If your systems are broken, you're going to find yourself in the same situation the next time your business grows another plateau, and it'll hurt your bottom line. Having a less scalable team and a less efficient team means less profits for you, and it also means less profits for your employees. So if you're a better streamlined, more efficient company with a higher profit margin, that means that you can probably afford to pay your team a bit better. They take on more responsibilities because they have a better system, and you can afford to pay them more. So it's not just about the owner, it's about the health of the overall business. So I feel like hiring new employees is a little bit of a scapegoat. And you need to be disciplined enough to try other avenues of growth first. So a little disclaimer there. Okay, so hopefully by now I've convinced you why it's important to focus on your systems, but how the heck are you going to get started on this? Like, I think that's the biggest challenge for business owners, is just knowing where to start. And I encourage you to start by establishing a system to focus on your system. I'm eating my own dog food on this one. Because if you have a set plan and a set way of how you're going to handle this, it's easier to hold yourself accountable to doing it long term, versus if you maybe it's something you're thinking about now and you forget about it a year from now, and then you're back into the same challenges. So establish a system that you can commit to, and it will help you stick to it long term. There's a lot of different frameworks out there for this. They're all kind of the same, with different names for different things. But Coalmarch uses EOS, or Entrepreneurial Operating System. We're going through kind of a reimagining of this right now. And I know a lot of small businesses use this as well, but there are other ones out there, like Objective Key Results you might have heard of, or Balanced Scorecards. But there's a lot of different frameworks. But I think just picking a framework that you can stick to is step number one. So Jeff, a question for you. I know recently you've been diving into EOS quite a bit. What kind of enticed you towards using it, and how did you feel it was a good fit for a small business?
So EOS, I looked at another one called Scaling Up, was another system that was recommended, that we've kind of seen out there before. It fits our size, and it fits where we're going right now. Honestly, the real reason we chose this one is that it had been implemented before. You all have already been through this. So we had a lot of the infrastructure around the company. We didn't have to make big moves. Our executive meetings were run in a similar fashion. It just meant a little bit more discipline in putting it in there. But it makes running the business Essentially what you're doing is you're boiling the business down to the key metrics and you're managing to the metrics. That allows you to step away as there are two roles as an implementer and there's a visionary role. Mm-hmm. When you're in the weeds, you're an implementer, you're not a visionary. And the visionary is really what's going to accelerate your business. It's really where your growth is going to happen. So I've got to be able, as a leader of the company, I've got to be able to step away and work on the big items that are really going to move the company and really move us. Just like all of the owners and CEOs that we've got on the call. Mm-hmm. You can't do that if you're stuck in the minutia. If you're dealing with feelings, I use that a lot. Like we're managing by feelings. We feel like this is not working. We feel like this is off. When you get to the point where you've got your metrics put together and everyone's driving toward quarterly goals, your big annual rocks that you're working to as a company, and the metrics are driving to it, you can literally drive in to a few meetings a week, look at the metrics and see if you're on track or not. And there are times where you've got to pick up the brass and you've got to step back in and get it, but you don't have to live there all the time. And that's why it's a beautiful thing. And I really like the EOS system. I'm looking forward to implementing it. Now I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to spin this back to you because you've gone through an implementation of this before. Mm-hmm. Are you excited? Are you fearful? Are you dreading this implementation of it? Or,
no,
what are your thoughts on it?
Not dreading it by any means. I think, I think I'm excited because we have done this before as a business. We're a very different business than we were last time we went through this. So we have different needs and things need to change. And I think we've gotten a little loosey-goosey on some of the systems that we put in place. It's been maybe 5 to 7 years since we did like an official implementation on this originally. So there's just stuff that we've forgotten about doing that we did early on that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember doing that exercise. It was really like one example is how to score your people. You have very specific vision for the core values of your business through EOS. And then you go and you score all of your people and you say, how do they stack up to the culture that we're trying to have for our business? And I know the first time we did this, we identified several employees that were not in line with where we were going. And it made some decisions very easy about whether or not they belonged in the future of the business or not. So something like that just adds so much clarity. So I definitely value this and I'm excited about it.
Good. I'm glad to hear that because we're
going. We're doing it. At the end of the day, all of these systems have similar things in common. Number one is setting your vision, setting goals based on that vision, brainstorming solutions, and then prioritizing and getting them done. So I'm going to go through kind of each of these phases and how it's going to be important to the business owners. So setting the vision. This basically, I really liked this graphic that I found of this boat just completely failing at getting through a river. But what kind of business do you want to be? A business with a very clear set vision of where you're going and what you're going to do, and communicating that to your employees helps all team members row in the same direction. At Coalmarch, we did a leadership offsite several months ago where the leaders of the team, we rented a house in Louisville. We all got together. Jeff was our leader. And we brainstormed, what is our vision? What are we trying to accomplish? What matters the most? And it's the most aligned our leadership team has been in years on what matters most. Before, it was our accounts team had things that were most important to them. Our products team had things that were most important to us. And sometimes those conflicted. So having this clear vision is so important. And it allows me as a leader to more independently make judgment calls. I think knowing where Jeff wants Coalmarch to go, I can now use that as a directive to lead my team and make decisions where, Jeff, you don't need to be involved in every decision because I know what you want. I know what you're looking for. So this is just a huge thing. Making sure you're communicating it to your whole company, not just managers, is a huge piece of it as well. So step one, figure out your vision, and then figure out, what does the business need to get there? Is it efficiency gains? Is it new revenue streams? Is it better customer retention, better upsell strategy, whatever it might be? Define kind of where's the low-hanging fruit, where do you need the most help? Any other comments on that? Jeff?
No, I think you're getting to the most fun. Let's go to the next one.
Let's go to the next one.
This one's really where it was. And you had a little bit of this in the past one of setting that 5-year
Mhm.
goal.
Yep.
But setting the goal. So I just finished a book recently. 10x is easier than 2x, and it sounds crazy. Like picking that 10x goal and saying we want to be 10x, this big, hairy, audacious goal. I think the BHAG, right? That's what they use in the EOS world. You look at it and you're like, that's impossible, and that's the point. The point is to choose the impossible on those goals, but that doesn't mean that's all of your goals, right? Like you've got stair steps to that. Like in our world, we've got a 3, a 5, and even a 10-year goals, and those 10 years that's a mountain to climb, and we're not ready to climb that mountain. But the next few have got to they've got to be realistic, right? And I think that's what you're about to step into right now. I just set you up, Kristen.
Yeah, I love it. That's perfect. Yeah, the aspirational side of these goals is so important. I always kind of say if you're the leader of a business and your team doesn't think you're a little bit crazy, you're probably not pushing them hard enough. But like my example of this, just one small anecdote is years ago, some people listening may remember Coalmarch's old conference CO2 that we would put on every year. When that idea first came up, Coalmarch we didn't have extra budget for anything. It was not a time when we were putting a lot into marketing or investing a lot on that side of the business. And our CEO came in one day and he said, you know what, we're going to throw a conference. We're going to put on our own conference. It's going to revolutionize our business. I need it to be revenue neutral so that we can pay for it. And we're not hiring anybody to manage this for us. We need to do it with the team we have now. Again, I thought he was a little crazy. How in the world are we going to do this? But him setting that very high goal for us, we didn't break even in year one. I think we had 30 attendees in year one. But by the end of that conference, several years later, we had 150 attendees, and we had sponsors that joined and could help make it revenue neutral. So we got there eventually, but setting that crazy goal that nobody in the team thought that it was a good idea or that it was going to be successful for us. And we were all wrong. So sometimes you need to go a little crazy to swing big, and it can have a big impact. So making your goals measurable. This could be, I want to reduce driving time by 10%. Maybe the action item that comes out of that is a route management software. I want to reduce time per job by 10% so that techs can fit in more visits in one day. Whatever it might be, set a few of these to help you reach that overall vision of where you're trying to be in 5 years. And then you can start to identify what are the things that you need to change within the business to hit those goals. So this was my favorite part of our leadership offsite that we did several months ago. It was the big Post-it notes. All of our leaders got in one room, and we just threw everything at the wall. Everything we've ever wanted to do to Coalmarch to make it a better business, we brainstormed and we wrote down. And it could be anything from personnel changes, new software we need to invest in, whatever it might be. Bringing the leaders together to have that conversation allows us to kind of feed off of each other. And then from there, you can figure out what's the most important. But having that brainstorming session with your key leaders is really step one. Because I guarantee you as a business owner, you don't know all of the needs of the business yourself. You can't do this on your own. You're not in the weeds every day. But your key leaders have more insight into that. So the brainstorming stuff is fun. Jeff, what would you say you got out of that exercise most when we did it?
Besides putting the giant Post-its all over the walls, that was fantastic. That was great. Yeah. I would say from an actionable perspective, coming back and actually having a plan. We stepped out. Coalmarch is a 20-year-old startup almost. We spun the company out of a much bigger organization. We didn't have the infrastructure. We were a services group. So we had to create a company around a services group. It gets a little crazy. There's a lot of chaos that goes into that, but we also had big plans. We had big goals. Our goals, we were looking at driving 20% efficiency in year one. Actually, not even year one. We're talking within 8 months.
Mm-hmm. Dare I say, we thought you were a little crazy.
Of course, and that's what we've got to do. And we put a couple other goals out there for this year that weren't measurable on purpose. Ones that we thought we could attack, they were a little bit more, just a little more qualitative than some of the quantitative goals that we put out there, but we had to put them out. And what's happened over the year is, one, we've built the company. I'm very proud of how we've done it and put it around. And it hasn't been absolute chaos, a little bit of chaos, but it's always going to be a little bit of chaos. But we also marched toward the other goals. And if we hadn't taken the time to sit down as a leadership team and everyone understanding that market and really understanding where we needed to go and agreed upon where we were marching toward for the remainder of the year in just those 8 months, there's no way that we would be anywhere close to hitting those today, because we wouldn't have set the goals to begin with. So getting the action plan and reviewing those with us, they're rocks. We actually review them weekly. Everyone has their own individual rocks that roll up to our quarterly and our annual rocks in the business, which are our big top line goals. And they're a weekly conversation with us. We look at them and say, what's on, what's off. And the ones that are off are the only ones that we discuss. Everything else is on. They're rolling. We're going toward it. We're going to meet our goals. So if we didn't have that action plan, I think we'd still be in chaos, just swirling around.
Yeah, we'd still be fighting those fires for sure. Absolutely. Okay, so this next part, this is where my product management background comes into play, the prioritization and creating your roadmap. I think when a lot of people say roadmap, they might think product development, but something that Coalmarch has done in the last few years is start to make it so every team in Coalmarch has their own roadmap of initiatives. It's not product development, but it's initiatives that they are in charge of implementing outside of their standard role responsibilities of servicing our customers. And they are in charge of implementing these initiatives for their team. So we've really applied a lot of product management principles to running our business, and it fits in nicely with the EOS system as well. So this is where I usually lose people a little bit, but hang in there with me, because I promise the end is worth it. But this is a little bit of product management training for everybody. First off, taking that list of brainstorming initiatives that you came up with and prioritizing them. Figuring out what is the most impactful thing to your business can be really difficult, which is why I like using this system called WSJF. It's weighted shortest job first, which means it not only takes into account what is the most important thing you need to be doing, but what is the quickest thing you can do to have impact. Because if I can do something in 1 week first that maybe has a smaller impact than a bigger thing that would take 6 months, it's still more valuable for me to get that impact in the next week versus waiting until after the 6-month project to get it done. So there's some give and take here, but using the system, I think, really helps. So I'm going to walk you through what that looks like. So to start, you create a list of all of the things you've brainstormed, and you are going to essentially assign a ranking to them on their level of impact. Let me jump ahead a little bit. There are 3 categories that you'll rate each of these initiatives on. It's business value, how much of an impact it will have. It's time criticality, if there's something that is urgent or there will be a consequence if you don't get it done quickly, or maybe something to do with competitors in the market, something like that. Time criticality is a factor, and then risk reduction. So, or is there an opportunity? If it's like bringing in a new service line, that's a big opportunity that you could get into place to get additional revenue. So that's a good opportunity for your business. So you score them on these 3 categories, and you document how long you think it's going to take you to implement. So I usually do this in weeks, but you could do it in hours, you could do it in months, whatever. Just make sure it's a consistent scale. And what you do is you take the cost of delay, which is the sum of all those scores, and the time it takes you to do the job, and it assigns a value to each of those initiatives. And then you can very clearly see, okay, this one is the most important. It has the highest value. So we're going to do that one first. So it just helps you kind of make decisions. This is not a hard and fast rule. I think sometimes people take this scoring a little bit too seriously. And it's like, you don't have to do it in the exact number order that this spits out. Use your best judgment, but it gives you guidelines to help you make better, faster decisions on what's important. So you assign your value. It forces you to think about value first instead of just urgency or the loudest request that might be coming in from one of your managers. It's a very tangible thing that you can rate these initiatives on. It creates a shared language amongst all of your leaders, so you're all looking at the same thing about what's important and why it's important. And it keeps you from doing the big flashy projects that might not have as good of an impact. Maybe it's something you're really excited about, but when you actually sit down and score it, it scores lower. And that just kind of snaps you back into reality so that you're choosing the right things. Because I mean, Jeff, I don't even know how many ideas we've had that were like, this is really important. And then when we kind of sit down to plan things out against all the other priorities, it suddenly becomes less urgent or less important.
So you're saying there's a law of limited resources out there? We can't do all things at all
I
times?
would say, I think we're bound by that a little bit.
I disagree.
We can do all things all the time. So here's like the perfect example of this. Let's say we've got 3 initiatives going that we have on our radar to potentially complete in Q4 of this year. I want to update my CRM workflows. I want to launch a new service line for the following year, and I want to improve my customer onboarding system. Improving my customer onboarding system, as you can see down here, scored lower in some of these other business value items, but because it only takes 1 week to get it done, it's actually when you add them up, gets the highest score with the WSJF system. So shorter time to impact is kind of winning there. And the thing that takes 8 weeks, even though it has more value, it's not rated as high because it's going to take longer time to value. So just kind of shifts your thinking a little bit on how you're looking at initiatives. Okay, this is the hard part, holding yourself accountable to the system, not getting distracted by the new shiny thing and just sticking to the system. So first off, you've got your list of priorities, you know what you need to do for the business. Now it's time to assign owners to those initiatives. It shouldn't all be getting done by you. Your leaders should be involved in getting these initiatives done. So assign an owner and then assign stakeholders. For each of our projects, we have a stakeholder assigned to those projects across all the different teams. So if I'm working on a product initiative, I have somebody on the SEO team that's assigned as a stakeholder for my initiative so that they're keeping an eye on it. They're keeping their team updated on changing conditions. And if there is a question that I have about the SEO implications of something, I have somebody to go to. I think the pitfall that teams fall into often is cross-team collaboration and communication. People go into silos when they have these kinds of roadmaps, and there's not enough cross-team communication, and things get missed, and people get surprised by changing policies in the business if you're not all communicating. So I really encourage there to be a key stakeholder on all initiatives that you do. So your role in this place is stick to the plan, eliminate obstacles as they come up, and just know it's never a good time. And you're probably going to hear your manager say this to you, but you need to push the importance of it. If you don't stay the course, you'll never get any better than you are today if you don't invest time in this. All right, so for each of our initiatives, this is just a quick reference, guys. Again, this comes from the product management background, but it can apply to any initiative that you do for your business. Start with a discovery or planning phase of the project. Outline what is your goal, what is the scope of this project. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Something that early on in the products team at Coalmarch we dealt with was people were not involved in the planning phase. We built something and then they suddenly come out of the woodwork with all these opinions on how it should have been done differently. And that's incredibly frustrating. And it also wastes a lot of people's time. So we're very invested in making sure all key stakeholders are involved in the planning phase. If they're going to have opinions, they need to have opinions then. Then you go through planning what it is you need to implement, how you're going to implement it, actually go and implement the new system, QA and test it. You're never going to get it right first time out of the gate. So test it, revise it, change it, make it better, get input, get feedback, and then make sure the whole team is trained on the new system and they're held accountable to following it, which is another challenge, I think, for business owners. I can't tell you how many times I've heard like sales reps tell me, I want to use call scripts for my CSRs, but I can't get them to actually use it. So it's, it's not worth building call scripts because they're just not going to use it. If it's something that you think is really going to move the needle, you need to educate your team on why it's important and make sure that they use it and hold them accountable. Jeff, I guess your experience with implementing new systems, would you say that accountability is one of the challenges, or what do you think is kind of the hardest part of implementing a new system?
So accountability and measuring impact, those are big pieces. And being able, when you say in the beginning, it's got to be a quantifiable, goal. You have to have the discipline to come back and measure yourself, and you've got to be honest. Was it a success or was it not? And sometimes they're not, and you've got to be able to move on and let's go. In the tech world, we had a fail fast mentality, right? You're putting out small tweaks on products, you push it out quickly. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. You move back and then you move forward again. And it's one of the best ways to move forward from a process perspective. But that measuring is about the accountability. It's one of the things, if you've got something that's quantifiable and you can come back at the very end and look at the ROI and make sure that it actually made sense at the beginning, that is how you hold people accountable. I'll go back to one of the things you mentioned before. Maybe I saved this to the end, but one of the biggest challenges in this, you've alluded to this several times, of bringing your leadership team in and having them be part of the process. If your leadership team is always looking to you to make the decision, and they are always looking to you for the answer, one of two things are going on. Either you got the wrong people in the wrong seat, and that's one issue, or you've created a culture and you got to look inward and say, okay, did I create this? It's one of the two. And that's one of the hardest decisions as a leader in a company, is when you look at your team and you're like, okay, I'm the problem. I'm the issue. I have to look at it sometimes and say, am I the one driving this? Am I the one creating this environment? And it's tricky when you've kind of got this theme of like, okay, bring in the leadership, follow this process, and they don't do it.
Yeah.
Maybe you have the wrong people.
Yeah.
I know we didn't spend a lot of time on the people aspect, but it's all about the people, right? That's all companies are.
It is. Yeah.
Moving forward.
Exactly. The right people to implement the right system makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
And something you should always be evaluating, because, like, to your point, Jeff, companies go through different phases and you plateau, and then you need to make big changes to evolve. And sometimes it means that the leaders in place are not capable of taking something to the next level. So constantly evaluating all aspects of your business can help you get there. And that's part of the EOS system, which is, I think, is a game changer for sure.
I'm pretty sure I didn't answer your question at all. We'll just move on to the next one, and then we'll tie it up.
We'll get there eventually. Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of things today. What does this actually mean in terms of implementation and actually getting it done? This is the schedule that I typically recommend. This is what Coalmarch does to manage our roadmaps and our initiatives. The biannual leadership offsite, I think, is huge. It's a time to reevaluate your vision, identify roadblocks. It's great bonding experience for your leadership team as well. It puts you all on the same team instead of, maybe your CSR leader is frustrated with your technician team because you have conflicting goals sometimes. But getting your leaders together on the same page can help year-round coordination with each other. So I think that time is very valuable. And doing them at strategic times of the year. So we did ours in April to plan for Q3 and Q4 goals. And we're doing another one in October to plan for Q1 and Q2 goals. And you'll notice you have to start pretty early, because you have to go through the exercise. You have to solidify your roadmap. You have to communicate to your team. They have to prep their stuff. There's a lot of things that go into making sure this trickles down through the organization in time for the next quarter. So definitely plan ahead with this. Quarterly presentations. We do this at Coalmarch as well. Our leaders present to the full company every quarter on company performance, progress on these goals. It allows our team to have buy-in on what it is we're all working towards and understand why some of the decisions are made the way that they are. it's kind of like a rallying cry for the whole team when we do it well. It makes people think they're working towards something, not just stuck in the mundane over and over of servicing clients or, whatever their job may be. Kind of snaps them out of that to see the bigger picture. So I really encourage everybody to have that type of cadence with their teams. Jeff mentioned earlier, we have weekly leadership meetings. We're talking about these goals. We're talking about scorecard, key metrics that talk about the health of the business, and the progress on our initiatives. And then we also, for each initiative, we have written project updates. We call them RPUs, because we got tired of saying regular project updates all the time. But it's written updates from the leader of those initiatives to keep everybody in the loop on what's going on and what the progress is made. And it holds them accountable to making consistent progress on things over time. So if you were to do anything, I would suggest getting these 4 kind of elements in place. And I think the rest of the system will follow behind. And if you go ahead and schedule your biannual leadership meetings now, it'll come up on your calendar, and that's how you hold your future self accountable to that. So lots of value in just getting a good rhythm of how you manage things. I believe that was the last slide. I have outlined here resources that talk about, there's several different books that some of the concepts I talked about today were pulled out of, including Traction, which goes into the EOS system. And I also really encourage, especially for managers, the Leadership Strategy and Tactics book by Jocko Willink. We have all of our new managers read that book, and kind of gets them up to speed on how we want our managers to manage. And it talks about picking up brass and when to do it and when not to do it. So a few different resources here. But that is all I have for you today, I guess. Jeff, any final thoughts?
One of the things you mentioned this earlier, Donnie, who, one of the, you won't call him the founder of Coalmarch, but he was really the founder of 2.0. If we look at it, he was the founder of 2.0. He grabbed you and a few of the other key leaders, all still in positions today, a decade later, and put you all through a training boot camp. And like you said, he forced you out of the weeds. You had never been there before. You'd never been in that strategic leadership position before. And he put you into that role and pulled you all up. And he did it through resources just like this. Put them in front of you. And I still hear these. It's funny. I haven't read some of these books, but I'll hear the concepts. Extreme ownership. I hear that one from the executive team a lot. They've never left you, have they? They've stuck with you guys all along the way.
Yeah, I actually have them up right here on my bookshelf right behind me. And I'm not a big book reader. I definitely advise audiobooks if you don't have the time to sit down and read all of these books. But yeah, we've really ingrained them into how we operate, and they're part of our culture, our core values, how we onboard new employees, how we interview for people. It's just all connected to that. And so it's really helped kind of foster a culture of like grit and determination in the Coalmarch team.
I would definitely say it's there to survive this long in this industry and grind through this many owners. Hey, yeah, it's paid off. Now I'm going to say one thing. I've read the E-Myth. I have not read the E-Myth Revisited, but I'm pretty sure it's work on the business, not in the business, right? Did we get that?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's the opposite. Yeah.
I don't want to confuse anyone.
That is wrong. Thank you.
Right. So of course it's just like
on the business.
It's like me to, as we're leaving, to point out the one, mistake we made here, because it's a mea culpa. All right. But this is great. Kristen, this has been fantastic. Thank you for putting together all of this content. It is excellent. Hopefully we have a lot of rewatches. I'm sure we'll be chopping this content and putting it out. Behind the scenes, we have Katie. You never see Katie. She's very rarely on these things, but she's the one that makes all of this magic happen. So Katie, thank you for dedicating your time. She also does a hot dog blog on the side. It's pretty fantastic. You got to check that one out too. Kristen, thanks again. We'll be I think we've got our weekly one-on-one tomorrow. So we'll be talking more about this and other things. If you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out. Hopefully we'll have this presentation available at some point in time. Anything else to add, Kristen, or are we ready to go?
Just that I hope this helps some people, and I'm happy to talk to anybody if they have follow-up questions. But hopefully this gives you some good stuff to start on for Q4. Now's the perfect time to be doing that. So get ready for next year. It's time to start thinking.
Excellent. We want to hear your ideas. If you have other ideas for content that you want us to put out, we're putting out a lot of these webinars. You may have a little bit of fatigue with it, but stick with us. It's good stuff. So thanks everyone for coming out today. Kristen, thank you for putting this together, and we'll see you all next go round.
Awesome. Bye. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.